Okay, and we are now live on Facebook. Hi everyone, it's Morna here with LeeAnn, and as soon as I can see us live, I'm going to be able to get us into the group. So just bear with us, everyone, for a moment while I do this. I'm going to share, copy the link. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. And I am going to post it. I love how I'm narrating what I am doing while millions of people online stare at us.
This is the new thing you have noticed. So you're on trend, I think.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I like to be on trend. Okay. All right, let's get us in here. I'm posting it into the group. Okay, we should be, there we are. We are live in the group. This is amazing. Okay. Kia ora, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to the Love Seat. I'm Morna Haist, the founder of Revolutionary Woman Global, and I'm joined today by the amazing LeeAnn Francis Bates, and I'm going to pronounce your name with my New Zealand accent.
Perfect.
And I'm going to read your little blurb, your amazing blurb. And then we'll get stuck into our chat. So LeeAnn is an intimacy and relationship expert, speaker, comedian, and author. I'm a bit of a comedian too, so let's crack a few inappropriate jokes together. I would love that. I love a good. I'm from New Zealand. We love an inappropriate joke.
I don't know if I do appropriate
ones. Good. And you guide individuals and couples in achieving fulfilling relationships from the inside out. Your unique approach works with and honors the diversity and co-creative power of each person. I love that. And the relationship they are creating while incorporating the 5 major types of intimacy: mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, and sexual. This approach allows a truly satisfying, powerful, and lasting relationship to be created and sustained. How cool is this? Okay, so I could start in about a million different places, but firstly, LeeAnn, before I ask you about the 5 types of intimacy, because I'm going to, how did you get into this work? What's what part of your story do you want to share with us?
The dreaded question for me. I don't, so the
really?
Short answer is I don't know how I could have gotten into this work any other way in this lifetime. It's just, it seems that my whole life was kind of geared towards, first of all, putting me in disastrous relationship circumstances from the time I was born, so that I could then have to try and unravel and heal and figure that all out. And, you know, that I'd even be brought certain people and circumstances to show me where I could have gone and allow me to make different choices. And then, of course, becoming so engulfed in this and trying to figure it out myself that, you know, finally one day, I sat there. I already had my business, my therapy business. I was the unconditional love person. I was doing keynote speeches and things like this on unconditional love and spirituality. And I felt really stuck in my work. I had always been doing relationship and sexual work on the side, kind of, not even on the side, just kind of secretly. And every time I brought it up to a coach, I'm like, well, I kind of do like a ton of this. I call it the elephant in the room. People come to me for unconditional love and spiritual guidance. And then it's always about sex and relationships. And every single coach was like, you can't do that. And it's funny because now I look back and there's other people in this realm that are publicly speaking about this too. So it wasn't just me. But what the feedback I was getting is that it would ruin my work, that it would not be a respectable way of presenting myself, that the mainstream public would think that combining, you know, spirituality and sexuality and therapy and all of this would be inappropriate. And so that I should not advertise it. And so I didn't for a while. And then I finally
gave you that really bad advice. Just so that we know not to go and work with them. I mean,
multiple coaches. Wow. And people actually got offended when I changed my work too. I actually did get messages on Facebook. How dare you go from being, you know, more of a spiritual teacher to teaching sexuality? These do not intermesh. It was a really big thing. And so, but anyways, I had these three beautiful.
Okay, hang on. Wait. Yeah. So
Yeah.
how come? Like, I mean, to me, from my spiritual lens, from my lens, it's a marriage made in heaven. I mean, they're intimately interlinked. So what gives
Yes.
with that?
You know what? I hate to say it. I think had I not been raised in a certain way myself, I may have not bought into these coaches' advice quite as much as I did. But I was raised in a family, like many people are, that is kind of based on your more westernized religious values.
Okay.
And sex doesn't have a place a lot of the time in that dynamic.
Oh, I see. Okay, so that
Right?
more traditional religious lens.
Yeah, I mean, it depends what you call traditional religious, because I
Yeah,
mean, then
that's
we
true.
got to look at some religions that,
Yeah.
where you've got like Tantra Buddhism, where like your sexuality is considered very much a part of who you are. And then where maybe we have other religious structures where we've kind of separated that out. But the great thing was, is as soon as I came into acceptance about it, I mean, I've been all over doing talks and stuff. I've like, I remember sitting in an airport and I was with a minister of a church, and he's like, I didn't know he was a minister. And he's like, what do? Because you're sitting, having your layover. I'm like, oh, I do intimacy. And he's like, oh, he's like, that's so great. He's like, I get so many couples in my ministry that, it's so hard for them to figure out their sex lives. And, there's a lot of stuff that happens there, whether they're, trying to get pregnant, it's infertility things, or it's after. And he's like, oh, that's wonderful. But it's weird because that energy was a little different 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Not as many people were speaking about it as they are now. And I mean, 10 years is so recent. So it's interesting, but there definitely has been a bit of a shift. And you definitely hear it spoken about more now. But yeah, I don't think it always was so much the case. But then again, it just depends on where you came from, what you're looking at, who decided to make the rules about it. Because in my own research, I've learned that so many traditional religions and cultures actually were richly integrated with their sexuality. And then as other cultures influenced them and things, we actually started pulling those pieces out. And those countries, those cultures kind of lost that integration, which I always find fascinating. Because I'm like, why did we do that? Why did kind of the powers that be kind of all over the world decide to say that our sexuality was separate? And does that serve to disempower us in a way? Did it serve to, right? So
that was my immediate internal response to, that it's a control mechanism, it's a power move, it's a way of keeping order and controlling folks. And it's curious.
it is.
Yeah, it's super curious. So tell me how this has played out for you, as you were making this transition. And the reason I want to talk on this a little is because so many of the women that I work with are women who are stepping into their truth. And there's a familiar story here of there's a familiar story here of what happens in our own internal worlds and in the external world when we're moving towards our truth, and how many mirrors that we might look into where folks are saying, no, it's not that. Could you please just stay, please remain,
totally.
in this way. Can you say a little bit about what that journey was like for you as you stepped more and more into what it sounds like you're here to do?
Well, I definitely had to do my own shadow work around it, right? I mean, even just starting off in the spirituality realm, becoming a hypnotherapist, all of that. The first mirrors that showed up for me were my family. Right. And they were like, that's just not Christian. That's Satan's work. I mean, like full flush, like it came to a place where I really had to start looking at my own boundaries. Was this my truth? Because it was just like, I was just getting fed this feedback that it wasn't okay. And so I did. I had to, create some personal boundaries. And one of those was having a conversation, with my mother at one point and saying, Mom, you know what? Clearly you're not comfortable talking about my work. And I love and honor you. And I want us to have a really good relationship. So perhaps maybe if you don't actually support my work and want to hear about it, you could stop asking me about it. Because that was the thing. She'd call me, how's your work? How you doing, hon? Oh, it's great. Like and she's like, oh, don't talk to Ray. So like maybe we could just have this boundary since you don't agree with it and it's clearly not, we're not going to come to a place of relating on this topic around this. And it's so funny because I say this now to you, but now she's great with my work. It's so funny. She's been slowly watching it over the years. And at times I actually even called her and said, Mom, I'm doing this really big talk and I have a feeling it's going to trigger you. Do you want me to tell you what it is first before it goes on the internet and 20,000 people see it? And sometimes she's been yes. And so it's been kind of an interesting healing process moving through that with my family. Mm-hmm. And not all of them have felt the same. But yeah, it's come into a place of acceptance and it's really interesting. Because I think often those things are even where your family needs to heal too, right? And so, yeah, it's a really interesting journey there. And then sort of outwardly with the public, I mean, when I made the change I did, I got messages and I had to just go, you know what, this is what I believe. And then the messages stopped and I never got them again. Like once I sort of confronted that space and decided I wasn't going to hold shame about it, gone. Like that was it. And then of course you find that you just start attracting more mirrors that are like, yo, this is great. I support you in this. How can we get this work out there? How can we collaborate? And it becomes a switch from sort of this resistance to actually being quite expansive. Yeah. And people asking you for more, like even to this day, people are like, wow, like, you're so you, like they've been watching me for 10 years, but they're like, I feel like there's even more you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, where would that be?
Yeah, right.
Are there things I'm not saying because I'm still afraid of offending people? Maybe.
Well, I think that's beautiful though. I mean, it does speak to our ever, I guess, evolving ability to expand and step in more and more to who we're becoming, right? And I want to go back a little bit to what you were saying about your family, because, and by the way, I think we're live in a couple of different places, but I'm not actually sure now whether I'm on my personal page or not, or whatever. Wherever we are, it's going to end up in the group. So that's cool. And if you are tuning in and watching us live, let us know, because I can't quite see the screen properly, and let us know your comments and feedback. I think it's curious. I've been reflecting on this quite a lot myself recently about, that moment of when you told your mom or when you told folks you'd been on your journey with it for quite some time, really, to get to that place, totally. Right? And then I think, and I'm to speak from my own experience, I noticed that oftentimes I have this idea that the person I'm speaking to is going to somehow, get to the page that I'm on, like within a 30-second conversation or a 2-minute whatever. And like you've illustrated with your mom, she needed to go on her own journey of understanding, right, and reaching that point. And I love how you named how you were able to navigate that relationship and create a boundary around, how you're able to continue showing up with each other. I've got like 5 different tentacles that I could go along, but since I'm naming the 5 different tentacles, why don't we segue into the different kinds of intimacy, these 5 different kinds of intimacy that you've named in your bio, and share something about those with us.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, along the way, people just say intimacy, and intimacy used to be this way of interrelating with each other and being vulnerable and letting people see into us and seeing into other people. And then somehow in more modern times, it's turned into a replacement word for sex, which is really not the whole thing. So a lot of people, when I say I do intimacy, they're like, oh, you do sex sexuality work, right? It's immediately what they go to. And so I really had to figure out a way to navigate that with people and almost reintroduce the idea for some people that it is far more expansive than our sexuality. And so I really looked into it and I felt into it for a while with my clients, with myself in my talks. And really, I've identified there's five. So we have our mental, which is our exchange of ideas. So, right, we have things between us that you have ideas about and I have ideas about. We see this kind of intimacy happen in the workplace a lot. Some people want it in the romantic relationships. Some people are like, I don't care if we have like a real exchange of ideas in the romantic relationships, right? So we play into mental intimacy, sometimes more places than others. For some people, having that mental exchange is like a total sexual turn on and leads to sexual intimacy, right? And sometimes it's just a really provocative, beautiful thing to be able to sit in a boardroom or to sit across from someone and really exchange ideas or philosophies or whatever that is, right? I mean, that's how the world goes around. We kind of expand a lot through mental intimacy.
And it feels like there are different levels of mental intimacy, you know, potentially what like what I'm going to share with you isn't necessarily what I'm going to share with someone who's been, you know, hanging around with me for, right? Yeah.
Maybe yes and no. And so this is where I've noticed that people that are more comfortable with intimacy tend to just share more of themselves without, shall I say, self-censoring. Yeah. You know, I mean, earlier on in life, like if I look back, yeah, there was lots of ideas I didn't share with people because I just was like, ooh, I don't want to get rejected by this person because this is kind of my philosophy in life, or right. And so, you know, we have that, but then there's kind of a couple layers to it. So it's like the more comfortable we get, the more comfortable we are probably sharing this with lots of people. Like, hello, I don't know who's watching this. I'm sharing quite intimate things, right? And I've gotten comfortable with that level of intimacy and I can handle it, right? But there are some parts of any kind of intimacy that we may not be able to quite handle everybody knowing, right? And that's where we just need to be discerning. And we can look at what I call our inner circle, those people that we can tell anything to, and we know they will love, adore us, and support us. And we know we can work through things with them. You know, then we have our friends, which some people think is their inner circle, not always. And, you know, some friends may really jive with you on some things and not on others. And maybe you don't talk to them about absolutely everything. And, you know, and then you have your acquaintances. And then again, there's an even higher level discernment. And then you have the public. And so, like, I mean, if you're doing like me and you right now, I mean, we're sharing things that some people might only share in their inner circle, right? So depending on where you are and how you're able to handle your own triggers and rejection and other people's reactions, you know, you might be more discerning in how you share your intimacy, or you might be way more open about it, right? And that's a personal choice. And it's also like, what's your capacity? You know, it's a really good question sometimes.
And I love that you're using the word discerning, because for me, the use of the word discerning implies consciousness, that we're making conscious decisions around, you know, where to share and not, and how to share and not. You know, and discerning what level of intimacy in those mental conversations feels right. And also, I guess that's also an unfolding thing. So there were five, right? Let me get them
mental
up.
Intimacy. So then we have emotional intimacy. So this is like a sharing of our emotions, right? And how far can I share that? Can, you know, I mean, so many of us, I mean, speaking for myself, I was not raised to share my emotions. Like, too happy wasn't okay, too sad wasn't okay, too much of anything. Like, I was considered, it was like, here's the neutral zone, this is where you belong. So I mean, for me, that was a huge thing. Like, I remember getting close to about 19, 20, and I laughed out loud in front of somebody and realized I hadn't heard myself laugh out loud, like, in any time that I could remember.
Wow.
And then I started crying. And I mean, I literally cried for days. I mean, I just had, you know, the world kind of crept up on me. and it took my walls down. And I remember I was watching TV. I think it was one of those horrible like UNICEF commercials where, you know, women have been raped and he's, oh my gosh. And I just started crying, and I just kept crying for about 3 days. I couldn't turn it off because I hadn't cried in years. Like, I mean, I was so attuned in my family to not sharing any kind of emotional intimacy that I didn't share it with myself. I had become very, very, very repressed. So again, we have different levels, right? You know, are we even comfortable with our own emotions? How comfortable are we sharing those emotions around other people? How many other people, right? Again, inner circle, public. And then we have oh my gosh, we got mental, emotional, spiritual. Spiritual is kind of an interesting thing because not everyone is like spiritual or religious in the sense that they think. It could be that you're watching a sunset together and there's just this wondrous sort of awe in it, right? So spirituality is like this sense of sharing this awe of this higher realm in the world with whatever you believe that is. Like, do you believe that, you know, it's so amazing that everything's made out of the same things from an atomic level? And like, how beautiful and crazy is that? Or is it that you believe in God? Or, right? So we have spiritual sharing. And then we have sexual, which of course many people are very, very comfortable with. And then some people aren't, and then some people don't even consider themselves to be really sexual. And that's an interesting thing. And I still think they do have sexual intimacy because I think we still do have sexual energy. It's like our creative energy, our fertile energy. You know, so it doesn't always need to go towards just sex. You could be creating something together rather than creating a child together, or, you know, having that. And sexual
creating
energy,
an orgasm together, or
exactly. And sexual energy, I mean, so many people think that, you know, it's just a person that turns them on. But what I've learned in doing all of my studies is, I mean, like, I get turned on like walking out in nature and watching, you know, dewdrops fall from leaf to leaf. You know, I get turned on laying on the grass. There's so much turn on in our world. It's crazy. And it's so much more vast than people think, right? And then we have experiential intimacy. And it's this sharing of experiences. How can you actually share in experiences and exploring and journeying together, right? And so when we look at all of these, we can start to see where our relationships are stronger, where we're stronger in, maybe where there's more room to have more fullness in our relationships, maybe where we have our own traumas and blocks that are kind of preventing us from going, right? You know, maybe someone's not comfortable going on a new adventure with someone they don't know because it might expose them in some way, right? And then it's like, okay, well, how could you just do that in like little tiny steps, like little, you know, just edge, like go to your edge and just sort of play there and see how that goes. And, you know, and that helps release trauma. It helps us expand. It helps us move forward. But yeah, I find that people that have really amazing relationships, they share all of this stuff. Like it's all there, right? And I find people that are struggling in their relationships, we start to see that there's places that it becomes difficult for them to share in these spaces, either with themselves, because it always starts with us. You know, it's very hard to share something with someone else that you can't see yourself. So, yeah, anyways.
Yeah. And I mean, I'll out myself here as having been in a 28-year relationship with my partner. And, you know, I haven't necessarily looked through our relationship through these 5 particular lenses. And I know if I did, I could definitely track a trajectory of, well, more of a roller coaster maybe, but, you know, a trajectory of development in these different areas, and in a different kind of richness in our relationship. And I'm curious, like, what is the price that we pay as humans if we are underdeveloped in these areas, or if we've experienced trauma, or actually, let's just name it. I mean, well, I'm going to name it for myself, especially if I think about emotional intimacy. you know, to me, we live in a culture, particularly in the West, that is very much like this. That, you know, even in our conversation before we came on, you know, you asked me how I was, and I said, well, my father died last week. And, you know, just to even share that simple truth with each other is, I don't even have the end of my sentence there. But, and what's the question I want to ask is, like, what's the payoff of going on a journey of exploring our relationship to intimacy through these different lenses?
Yeah. You know, I think it's a lot more, I think it's a lot more fullness in life. You know,
Yeah.
I often say that I help people live and love more fully. And I think intimacy does that. And it's the hardest thing to explain, because until you get there, it's hard to even know that you
Yeah,
are limiting yourself in the first place.
that's correct.
It's such an odd thing, but it's almost as if, you know, like, even when I think about it for myself and I think like, where am I going to be in 20 years? I have no idea. Like, I'm like, whoa, what an interesting thing. Like, in what ways might I still expand and grow and get to take in life and all of that, right? And that's the journey of intimacy. It's just living and loving more fully. It's moving away from your fear and into fullness, you know, into being able to experience a range of emotions. You know, some people are like, well, I don't want to experience a range of emotions, right? Because they have ideas about it. It's painful.
Yeah.
It's, you know, yeah, life is painful sometimes. It is super painful sometimes. But what I've learned is that the more we expand our ability to experience on one side of the spectrum, the more we experience on the other. And, you know, it's weird, but when you have known deep pain or, you know, loss, it's interesting how much more you embrace what you do have, you know, and how much more you relish it and how much more joy that you decide to find in life.
Mm.
And it's a weird thing that us humans, that's kind of how we do learn.
It is. And I have a condition called premenstrual dysphoric disorder. It's called a disorder, but I now call it premenstrual dysphoric response. And I don't know if you're familiar with it, but between 3 and 8% of women have this. And basically, as we head towards our periods, our body stops being able to produce serotonin, literally.
Mm-hmm.
It's like PMS, but amplified by 1,000,000%, and historically has been put in the category of hysterical woman, but now they've discovered the genetic basis for it. So what I'll say about it is that, I mean, it's partially why I went into the field of adult development and understanding how we grow as human beings. Because I set about fixing myself in my young life, because there was no label for this other than, you know, me feeling crazy for 2 weeks out of the month. But what I'll say about it is that it's been the most incredible gift in my life, because it has allowed me the gift of experiencing the absolute depth of emotional pain that we can feel as humans. And that's a gift. And I have to say that I almost now feel bad for folks who actually don't have the capacity to connect with that level of intimacy. And one of the things I want to say to you, through my lens of working with leaders around the world and working with what we need on this planet at this critical time, one of the things we urgently have to do is cultivate our relationship with our emotions so that we can actually become present to and feel fully what is happening on our planet. Because this disengagement, this disconnection we have, this ability that we have to sit in front of the television and watch the kind of commercial you were watching and disengage from it is at the heart of so many of the issues that we're experiencing and facing. So, you know, I totally understand why we might not want to feel pain like that, but the cost of it is too high. The cost of not feeling that pain is too high.
It's true. I mean, whether you're looking at it on a worldwide scale or just in your own home, you know. And what you said is true. I mean, I remember sitting, I mean, people are weirded out that I don't go to the movie theater, but I remember going to the movie theater years ago, and we were watching a movie, and there was horrific things happening on the screen in front of me that were actually based in real life events, and people were laughing in the theater. And I mean, I wanted to cry at the horrific thing that you know, and people were laughing, and I was just like, wow, how disengaged are we at this point? That, I mean, you can find humor in this. Like, it just really wasn't funny. And I find a lot of humor in a lot of things, like more than most people. And yeah, it was just crazy to me. And I see this kind of thing all the time. I mean, you know, parents completely disengaged from their children. You know, their children are in actual trauma. Their children are in actual fear, you know, and they're sitting there telling them like, they don't, like, it's not valid. Like, they're devalidating their children's feelings, and they don't even realize it. Like, I'm not even trying to say these parents are like intentionally bad parents. They have no idea. They're disengaged themselves, and there's their child who hasn't learned to be disengaged yet, saying like, this is very serious for me in whatever way, through their you know, emotional, you know, they're maybe sharing it, or maybe they're acting out, or all of this, and the parents are just trying to sort of quelch them. And we do from such an early age. I mean, a baby cries and we're like, oh, shh, 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 it's fine, it's fine. I mean, the baby's crying for a reason. It's not fine, actually. It needs us to figure out, it needs us to figure out what's going on, right? But we're like, right from the minute we literally come out, we're being told to disconnect and disengage from our emotions. And I think it has such serious consequences in our families. I think this is why depression is so high. It's why anxiety is so high. And, you know, half the time, and this may be a controversial thing to say, but I have complex PTSD. So I get to say it, at least from my perspective. But the best way through my depression and anxiety was feeling it. It was not through pharmaceuticals. You know, they put me on antidepressants at one point, and I finally had the go-how that I could actually go commit suicide. Whereas when I was actually having to feel my crap, I couldn't go do that. And I mean, it's even on the labels for our pharmaceuticals that like suicide rates actually go up when you go on to antidepressants. Like, why? I don't understand why we're not looking at these things and going, okay, so there's a purpose that we have these, but how can we use them in more discerning ways? How can we give people the help to reconnect to their emotions and feel these things while we're assisting them in other ways?
Like, LeeAnn, I mean, boy, we're going to continue talking for a wee bit if you're open to it, because we're just getting into, like, unless you have somewhere to rush to. Okay, sweet. Because, you know, I mean, there's really good research now around the 0 to 3, the developing brain, and that's where so much of this is getting laid down. And the ability to circuit break this pattern is essential, and to cultivate the capacity to sit with emotions as they're really happening it's tough, and it's something that you know, I'm the mother of 2 teenage daughters, and there's a lot of stuff, you know, raising two girls to in a home where emotions are expected to be seen and heard, right? Which is the opposite to my upbringing, and to be able to sit with your children's emotions, especially as a mother, when, you know, I do believe there's a biological imperative for us to fix the situation in ways, you know, we're wired to take care of the situation, but how we've been taught to take care of the situation in the modern world isn't particularly useful. It's certainly not useful for our evolution as a species. I had an interesting situation with one of my daughters, who's 16, who came to me a couple of weeks ago, and she's on medication similar to me that helps with premenstrual dysphoric and helps our body produce serotonin when we can't do it. And she came to me and she said, I think I need to up my dose of this medication. And I said, what's going on?
Yeah.
And she started to tell me what she was experiencing. I'm like, sweetheart, these aren't things that we need to medicate. We need to talk them through.
Yeah.
You know, these are natural life events. These are natural feelings that are occurring for you. But we've made from my point of view, I think that we've pathologized. Is that the right word? Pathologized? I don't know. We've labeled and put pathology around so many natural and normal human responses. You know, I think the range of normal emotional responses is out here. And maybe the disordered end is kind of a little bit here. But the way we've viewed it is, here's normal, and here's, you know, everything that we need to medicate that isn't correct, that needs a diagnosis. That, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's so fascinating because I do both. And, you know, man, when I say holistic, like really, I like the holistic approach because, you know, I work with a lot of people that come in and they've got addiction issues and things like this. And, you know, a lot of that usually comes down to your dopamine, your serotonin, you know, things like this. You know, I myself have I have a genetic thing where I don't produce enough happy hormones either. So I actually take natural supplements to try and even those out. And that was really actually very useful for me in my personal life. And I found it really useful for my clients to bring them both through all the tools to be with our emotions and to work through our traumas. And then when they continue to see that there's issues, it's like, you know what, why don't I give you a referral, go see this person? Why don't you just get checked out, see if you have any genetic dispositions around your serotonin, dopamine. I think it'd be really useful to know too, and just be aware of it. So, you know, am I like diving onto the TV or my sex addiction or that bottle of booze because I literally don't produce enough dopamine and serotonin? You know, what can I do in my life so that I produce more of it? Whether it's what you're talking about, a prescription drug, or is it supplements, or is it doing yoga regularly or running regularly, like doing things that also stimulate those. You know, I think we're so lucky in so many ways in the age that we're in, that we can both look at something from a really holistic, how do we be present? How do we use these, you know, internal tools and do the self-development work, and also be enriched by our technologies at the same time? And how do we find that space to do both? Because I think that's the big issue. I think we're just really out of balance. And I think most of the world doesn't even know the tools that are available to them. Like when I teach people to go through emotional release work, they're like, oh my gosh, like I've had teachers in here that are like, if I had a place that kids could do this, I'm like, if you could bring this to the schools, I will help you. There should be, in my opinion, in every single classroom, a corner where there's a bunch of pillows and kids can go safely scream in a pillow. They can go hit it, kick it, do whatever they need to, go have a cry, so they can, you know, if people could put that in their workplaces, I think, you know, we would revolutionize the world. Because we're so busy repressing ourselves in certain circumstances, and then we don't come back to the feelings, or we don't know how to process them later, and it leads to a lot of issues.
It leads to a lot of issues. And, you know, I through the lens that I work through, it's kind of the individual and the social structures. It's that interplay between these. And, you know, I believe that if we were fundamentally healthier, more emotionally attached, or looking at this through the lens that you're presenting, then we would actually create a different world. We'd create different structures. We'd create different systems. And I think that, you know, there's this interplay as well of, we're in, especially in the West, when we're in these dominant cultures that tell us that this is how you show up, this is how you work, this is what's expected of you. And then when we can't fit into those places, we start to feel shit about it. Well, sometimes it's the system, it's not us. You know, for me, especially if I look at a country like the States, which I spent a little bit of time living there, and it was such a devastating experience for my family, especially my children, that to me it feels like it just such an example of a culture where you know, we're medicating normal human experiences is kind of a natural thing to do. You know, you should be able to function in the 9-to-5 job. You should be able to function with, you know, a family that you need to figure out how to put put food on the table in this way. Like, and if you can't, then it's your issue, not the product of the system or the culture that you're in, or, you know, the place that you're in. And why I think one of the reasons, I mean, there's many reasons why the work you're doing is so important, is when you create more whole human beings, I think we have the capacity and the chance to create a more whole society and a way of being that enables us to have more full, free emotional expression. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I work for myself, because if I want to create space for myself, I can.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're not going to create those people aren't going to create systematic changes around things that they don't value and they haven't experienced either. So the systems themselves, you know, the government supports how we raise children in the school system, how we look at people's careers, and how we look at how we support them in the, you know, the health industry isn't going to change until enough people in this world, funny enough, have gone through the work on their own, done it, and decided that it's really important. And then they raise, you know, perhaps their children, and they decide it's really important. And then they're like, oh, okay, this is really important. Let's decide to do this. So, you know, has all changed, I think, kind of starts with each one of us, you know, and then we can change the systems, hopefully. But I mean, it really means people need to understand that it really is important. And I mean, I have to say, like, on a personal level, I felt really disheartened this last year watching Society, like, really disheartened at how easy it was for people. And I mean, I know people went through a lot, but still a lot of people, it wasn't that hard to disconnect, you know? Yeah.
Well, and that,
or they just ignored how hard it was, or I don't know. Like, I mean, there's just so many things I've seen, and I'm like, how can we do that? Like, you know, I don't know. Like, I can't imagine. Like, I don't know. I don't. My daughter is 8, and she's sitting here going, "How are we doing that?" Yeah. And I'm like, ugh, you know, I'm raising her in a world with a bunch of people that aren't thinking that, and there's all these kids that aren't going to think it either. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, look, what I'll offer, and then I'm going to segue into helping folks know how to connect with you, is so from my field of work, which is adult development, what I'll say is that, and one of the reasons why my organization is called Revolutionary Woman is because we are in over our heads as a species at this point, and in the kind of the adult development model that I work with, it shows the capacity of our human populations to really engage with what's going on in our planet, and it through a lens of adult development, through a lens of the mechanisms that help us grow into having the kind of complex capacities that we need right now on the planet. And this theory, well, it's not really a theory, this field of research says that only 3% of us right now are reaching the stages of development required for us to be able to work effectively and skillfully with what we're experiencing. And the reason why I work with women is because I believe with every fiber of my being that that women have a head start on being able to engage with our emotional being, just from the nature of who we are and the very things that we've been put down for over the centuries are the things that we need on the planet right now. And so when I look at that model, when I look at that through the lens of my experience of the folks that I've worked with over the years, my obsession is how can we accelerate the growth of that group of people? Because the reality is, and there's another group that sits kind of, this development model isn't a hierarchy, it's more of an expansion model. There's a decent swag of people that sit on the edge of that, and then there's a massive, massive group of folks who never go beyond the stage of development that keeps us trapped in binary thinking, like black and white thinking, being emotionally closed off, and all of these things. And like you've pointed out earlier, our systems are designed for this perfectly. You know, we've designed systems that perpetuate it. So we don't even necessarily have an experience of what you're talking about, and we're blind to it, which makes explaining what I do sometimes really difficult, because they're like, well, you're a Martian, what the fuck are you talking about? And that's okay, because I'm good at finding the people who are sitting at that developmental level, because this is a long-winded way of saying to you that I do believe there's reason for hope, because there are, even if it's only a small percentage, significant groups of people around the planet who do know, who do understand how to step in at this time. And yeah, how can it be possible that millions of people die and countless other millions of people are impacted by what's occurred through all kinds of different lenses?
Oh,
I think
so many different.
so big. Okay, well, I could actually literally talk to you forever.
There's just like so much going on around it that it's crazy. Yeah, you can't really speak to it without going into a whole create a documentary probably.
Yeah, that's right, without creating a documentary. So let's actually segue and finish off by answering this question. I mean, you know, I'm guessing that you work with people who are having a realization that there's more. Why do people come to you? What stage are they at? And then for folks who are watching and tuning in, how can they find you? And what's up, LeeAnn?
You know, it's funny. So often people don't know why they're coming to me. It's a fascinating little thing where they're like, you know, I don't know why I really want to come see you, but there's something about you that I've noticed that I can't put my finger on, and I need to work with you. So I get a lot of that. And I know why.
Yeah.
I get a ton of clients. I call them my unicorns, my mythical creatures that are not mythical, that usually run their own businesses, or entrepreneurs, or they're CEOs, really successful business people usually, that have they're leaders in the world already. They've done a ton of personal development. I mean, some of them have like 5 different, university degrees, and they're like, I don't even know if you could like teach me any, and then we work together and like, oh, it's kind of interesting. Where those people, they're like, there's something more, right? They're like, there's something more I want in my relationship, my current one. Maybe they're divorcing and they're like, I like want to, I do conscious uncoupling for people. So they want to like consciously actually uncouple so that they can really support their children. Or they're coming out of a divorce and they're like, I never want to do that again. Like, help me, help me work through this so I don't repeat these patterns. And then I get like some really like kind of super fun stuff where, the couple's brand new and they're like, we really want to start off right. How can we do that? I get people that are just like explorative. Maybe they've been together for 40 years and they're like, we really want to learn kink. How do we do that? How can we, do that? Or how can we do tantra? Or how can we, spice things up? Or, we've kind of lost our way and we don't want to separate. How do we like revive that? Yeah, I mean, so many fertility issues, right? Things get difficult. And then I get, singles with different things. And not singles, I get, men with erectile dysfunction, you know, and they've been everywhere. I mean, I feel so bad for people sometimes. And same with some of the women with vaginal issues. You know, they've been to, they've been through the whole medical system, you know, and they're trying to do all these different things and it's not helping. It's just getting worse. And it's because it's mental, emotional. It's mental, emotional, somatic stuff that needs to be done. And so we'll do that kind of work with people. But of course, then they learn too, right? So maybe we're working on erectile dysfunction, and part of it is teaching them some tantra techniques so that they can last longer. And then they're like, okay, this is going really well. Is there like another level to this?
Okay. Right.
Yes, there is, right? So yeah, people come to me for that kind of stuff. And then sometimes this is family life. It's, you know, parenting stuff. You know, I am neurodiverse, so I'm autistic, I'm ADHD. My daughter is as well. And so I get a lot of people that are just trying to figure out their non-typical family dynamics too, right? They're like, you know, how do we do this? How do we raise our children differently? How do we do that? How do we have our children, raise them differently and have a sex life? How do we communicate with our children appropriately? You know, yeah, lots of that kind of stuff. But a lot of I don't know why I'm coming to see you, or I've been watching you for like 5 years and now I'm making an appointment.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, I know, like this is interesting. Like, and I kind of want to finish here because I want to point out to the folks watching, to the women in my community, that like, you know, you exude who you are, who you're being, right? And I think that that is the magnetic attractor. And you know, I experience the same thing. I often have people say, I'm not really sure what it is you do, but can we, like, I just want to be more of whatever that is.
Can we do that, whatever it is?
Yeah. And I think that's cool. It doesn't always translate onto a sales page, which is cool. You know, which is cool. So yeah. So, my dear, how can folks find you?
They can look me up on Facebook. I'm really easy to find, LeeAnn Frances Bates. It is with an E in the Francis, so don't look for the male version, the IS. It's LeeAnn Frances Bates. But yeah, you can find, I mean, LeeAnn with a hyphen is just, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, if people know my first name, they can Google me pretty easily. So you can look me up.
Spell your name wrong, LeeAnn.
Yeah, I know. It's all good. I don't have much ego about it, so we're good. So you can find me on Facebook. I do have a group on Facebook, which can be really nice for people because you can kind of just settle in, get some support, watch videos. I've had, you know, people in my group come and talk. And it's called You Matter, Intimacy and Relationships Evolving. Because I think it does start with you, and I think it starts with people feeling really confident in who they are and what they want, and then creating the relationships they desire. So I have that group. It's totally free. I don't do any sales pitches in it. It's literally my gift. And then, yeah, if you want, you can email me, support@leeann.love. That is .love, not .com. And my name is LEE-ANN, so you do have to spell it appropriately. And yeah, you can give me a call if you want. I mean, I do that too. People are like, really? You're giving away your phone number? So it's 604-362-3464. Texting me is best because I'm a homeschooling working mom. So texting me is best, and, you know, just say, hey, you know, I'm looking for this or I'm looking for that. And if I can support you, I will definitely send you in the right direction. Yeah.
That is so awesome, LeeAnn. Thank you so much. And I'm just going to make sure that your name is spelled correctly and all of the stuff that's sitting with this. So don't worry. Like, you will never know, because my name is Morna, for God's sake. So you can imagine how many times that's been butchered, because even with my accent, you actually can't hear how it's spelled because it's got an R in it. But I get it. Names are important. So we're gonna sort this out. We're gonna sort it out. And I want to thank you so much for hanging out with me for like half an hour longer than I had planned. But hey, tune in soon for the podcast. Thanks, LeeAnn. I'm going to take us off being live.